I'm at Paine Field in Everett, where we're about to be joined by Congressman Rick Larsen, who's going to sit down and talk with airport administrators about the new FAA authorization bill, which is due to come before the U.S. House in about the third week of July. Now, it's not a done deal. The Senate bill might be different, and there might need to be some things to be hammered out in the next few months as they work on this bill. But we'll get more of those details here in the meeting with Congressman Larsen.
So we want to increase the authorization for the Airport Improvement Program, or AIP, fund from about $3.35 billion over the life of the bill to about $4 billion over the life of the bill. Most of those funds are actually not appropriated funds. They're generated by airport users and go into this fund, and that is used to fund the airport master plan, so that every airport has to have a master plan. So they have a process here at Paine Field where they go through that master plan for a 20-year master plan. They update it every so often, and they use that as a basis to receive grant money from the FAA.
Okay, so it's not contingent on budget negotiations.
Most of it is not.
Yeah.
Most of it is not.
Okay. Good. And again on the PFAS, this as we were discussing, related mostly to finding alternatives to that for the foam and
to the firefighting foam.
Right.
Without.
You can't do anything through the FAA reauthorization in terms of.
I'll double check on what we are doing.
Yeah.
On that.
But mostly that's a matter for state.
Well, setting the standard is an EPA function. That is what is allowable in terms of the chemical makeup of firefighting foam, and that is not in the jurisdiction of the FAA or the committee I serve on. Helping airports put any new infrastructure in place in order to deliver that foam would be something that the FAA bill could help airports with.
Okay. And maybe even in dealing with contamination, preventing contamination, is that a possibility? I'm pro preventing contamination. I just don't understand your question. Okay. Well, just if there were any kind of infrastructure that would prevent PFAS from getting into the soil.
Yeah, it would depend.
Yeah.
It depends.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'll have Noel follow up with the committee staff on what specific is in the House bill.
Okay.
And get that back to you.
Okay. I think
Okay.
those are my questions.
Great.
Okay, well, can you tell us a little more about this, what's in the bill in terms of the shift to sustainable fuels?
So what we're trying to encourage airports to think about is that the future of aviation is going to include different fuels and different sources of energy. If you think of electric airplanes, which won't power the large 737 or the 777, but very much could power a 50-seater in the future, what kind of infrastructure would you need to deliver that electricity to the airport in order to deliver it to the airplane? And what airport? And then there's also hydrogen. Longer in the future, I want airports to start thinking about what kind of infrastructure they're going to need, because the dollars they receive from the FAA can be used for infrastructure improvements, so long as they're related to the airport's function, which would be delivering fuel to airplanes. So that's one way to think about it. The other thing to think about is on unleaded fuel, especially as it applies to general and only as it applies to general aviation airplanes, because the other fuel is not for larger airplanes is unleaded. But these smaller planes currently the owners need to prove that their airplane is certified to run on unleaded fuel. Not all of them do, and that's a separate issue, but delivering unleaded fuel probably isn't much different than delivering leaded fuel, but to the extent that it is, would require some infrastructure changes at airports. And airports will be able to use future dollars to make those changes.
And so that would benefit, essentially, I'm guessing, smaller fields like not only Paine Field, but Boeing Field, where we see a lot of smaller airplane traffic?
Yes, I would also throw in Arlington Municipal and Skagit County Regional Airport, and even Bellingham Airport, any airports that are in my district, as opposed to those are not.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, way to promote your district there. Now, something that I think does not relate to Paine Field, but I'm wondering what's in the bill in terms of, helping try to prevent some of these delays and cancellations. When we've seen another round of that this week, a week ago or so, we had to deal with the FAA equipment problem at the DC Control Center. What's in the bill?
Some of these are within the control of humans, and some of these are not within the control of humans. So where the delays are, the challenge was strictly weather related. There's not much to do. Where they are either airline related or FAA related, that's where we can fix it. The one thing the bill does is requires the FAA to staff up their air traffic controller workforce to the recommended level that both the airlines and the union that represents air traffic controllers all agree on. There is a number of people that everyone agrees on, and the FAA now needs to hire, fund, and staff up to that level so that you don't have a shortage of workers at some of these high intensity airports. Now, the New York airspace is the most complex in the country, with 3 major airports in a very confined space in an area that is subject to crazy weather patterns. So it's not that adding 1 or 2 or 3 more people in the control towers would have helped, but staffing up to an appropriate level would have alleviated, I wouldn't say solved, but would have alleviated the problems. But in addition to that, airlines need to plan for these weather events with much more sophisticated tools to do that these days. So there's just a lot of work we need to do on the things that we can control, but there are some things that are out of control.
When you bring up a good point, is there anything in the bill now, adding requirements to the airlines to step it up? The Secretary of Transportation last year was able to get the airports to all agree on what they would do in the event of cancellations, and I presume the Secretary is using those tools to hold airlines accountable for what they can be held accountable to, and so that's important. And hopefully he'll have more to say on a lot of issues when he's here in Mukilteo this Thursday. Oh, he's coming to Mukilteo on Thursday. Okay, glad to know that. I did not know that until this very moment. So I want to back you up to this idea of staffing up, because that's going to take some training. I mean, you can't just hire people off the street. What do we do? Is there going to be funding in the bill to help pay for that training?
This is all part of what we want to do. We want to fund the training, ensure the spots are available at the training academies, and then that there's no interruption in that training as well. That obviously COVID was a huge problem for a lot of things, and the training, the number of people that we needed was not able to happen during COVID. I think we're seeing some of the bad fruits of that, missing out on the opportunities to train folks. And now we're playing a little bit of catch up, but we know what the number is. We know how many folks, the airlines and the union all agree on. Here's what we need to train to. Now let's fund it and get it done. And we are telling the FAA to do that and help providing the money for the FAA to do that.
Okay, and then lastly, since we're talking about workforce, this bill contains quite a bit for aviation workforce development. Tell us a little more about what's in there.
Yeah, in the current bill, in the current law, we call it Section 625. It's Aviation Workforce Development Program. We're going to expand that program, moving it from $15 million to $45 million. That will help train pilots. It will help train aviation maintenance workers. And a new category will be aviation manufacturing workers that we're going to add to that. Each of those categories is about $15 million. In addition to that, we're doing a 20% set aside in each of those areas. to do some specific outreach to communities and people that have been underrepresented in this workforce in the past. I think as America's demographics change, we need to be purposeful in letting folks know that these good paying jobs are available to everybody, not just the people that were hired before, not just legacy hires, but to everybody. And frankly, we need more people in the aviation workforce. Just the truth of it is, we need more people in the aviation workforce as the industry now has largely recovered from COVID and is growing. And if we're going to be competitive worldwide, the U.S. needs to ensure that the workforce, that we're doing everything we can to reach out to as many people to get into this workforce as possible.
Yeah, in fact, if I remember correctly, the number is greater than 100,000 in terms of people needed for the industry, so no small feat. Anything I missed you want to throw in there? No. All right, well, thank you, Congressman.
Thanks a lot. If you could, so
yeah, sure.
Just to level set, we passed the bill out of committee, the FAA bill out of committee. It's got a lot in it. It's a substantial substantive policy bill, 772 pages. So it's not a shell of a bill. It's a real bill, a real bill. And we're looking at being on the floor the third week of July. So
oh wow, okay.
So we're back in session next week. Yeah, so this will be the first week of July, right? Yeah. So the second week we're back. So next week is the defense bill, and the week after that will be the FAA bill. That's the plan. Okay. So we're currently putting together a manager's amendment, which should just be things we can agree on to make changes to, as well as I wouldn't say we're entertaining amendments to the bill, because I don't want to entertain any amendments to the bill, as someone who wrote it. So, that said, I'm sure there will be other amendments. We'll call them
sure.
non-manager amendments for the fourth. So that'll be the third week. With regard to the Senate, I have nothing to say, only because it's not my bag.
Right.
We've been focused in the House to get our stuff done, get our bill done. And I think that that has served us well to focus on what we can do. Same with the administration. Without an FAA director, it's been difficult to get the administration's fully vetted, fully approved recommendations in a timely manner. But that said, we have I think a really good bill as it is. So.
Good. Well, we're excited. I know we talk about it all the conferences when airports get together. So we're all curious and anxious at the same time. So
yeah, right. And I'm sure at some point, as it is when Congress does bills, this bill will die 1,000 deaths before it gets to life 1001.
Right.
But it will, and it'll happen in a matter of 3 months.
Yeah, good.
So just strap yourself into the roller coaster and get ready.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the effort, that's for sure, because it benefits all of us. Community, airports. So it's really huge. So we're excited to put it in. But we sat down. We went through everything we saw in the bill, and we just had a couple things that we wanted to kind of throw our support behind.
Sure. Oh yeah. And so Jessica does outreach here in the county, and then Noelle is here from the DC office and works with me directly,
okay.
But also on the transportation and environment and tribal portfolios with this transportation. She's not on the committee, but she liaises with the committee staff.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go around the room. We'll start with Kristen over here, and then we'll catch you guys online as well.
So I'm Kristen Banfield. I'm the Public Information Officer for Paine Field.
Happy Monday, Dawson Frank, Airport Deputy Director.
Pete McGuire, I'm the other Airport Deputy Director.
Stephanie?
Good morning, I'm Stephanie Wright, the Executive Policy Officer. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you. Hey?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Congressman Larsen, for joining us today and allowing us to share some thoughts about the FAA reauthorization. Totally need your support and very much appreciate and grateful. I'm A. Wojcicka, representing the Exec's Office and Executive Director. Thank you.
Thanks, A. Simrit?
Hi, good morning. This is Simrit Dalilo. I'm with the Executive's Office. I have a little bit project management over the SAF R&D Center, so if there are any nexus there, yeah, please feel free to ask me about that.
Thanks, Simri. Josh Marcy, I'm the airport director.
Jessica Corbin, Sponge County Liaison. I'm Noelle, and I'm based in Brett Larson's DC office.
John Bauer with the Herald.
John Ballard with the Herald.
Ryan Harris, Northwest News Radio.
All right, cool. Fantastic. Appreciate that. So, obviously, you heard Simri talk a little bit about SAF and her involvement in that. And so, you know, for us, we want to just kind of make sure that we're kind of lobbying for support for WSU for, you know, as a part of their grants for the Center of Excellence for the Alternative Jet Fuels and Environment. So, you know, they're going to build an R&D center out here, and so anything that can, you know, help move them along, those institutions that receive that money, we want to really just throw our weight and support behind so that they can, you know, use that to help be successful in their venture as well. So we're excited about that. Then also, Paine Field will benefit directly if Paine Field's approved for the grants for the PFAS replacement program and the reimbursement plan. So as all that PFAS stuff, you know, comes out and is getting created, you know, we'll definitely benefit for some of those grants for the replacement program as well.
And my understanding is on PFAS that there's language potentially in the Senate bill, but there's not language in the House bill. Is
Okay.
I got that right? No. So just to make a point, I don't know what again will happen on the floor of the House.
Sure.
I'm sure there's going to be an effort by some of the Senate to get House members to introduce amendments to try to move the House bill closer to where the Senate might be doing them. Those might be good ideas, and they might be terrible ideas. I just don't know generally where that will happen, but that might be something that happens.
Yeah, and we know that's kind of all a work in progress right now as well. So we nationwide, I think every airport director and environmentalist is keeping their ears to the floor in this one. So it's pretty important. So
You're talking about replacements for firefighting?
Correct. Yeah, the firefighting
Firefighting foam.
the foam. Yes, I know, right? The AFFF or yeah. So it's a replacement that is absent of PFAS. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Also, one of the things that we noticed in there was a benefit for the expedition of the AWAS, which is the Automated Weather Observation Systems. We think that's exciting. We have one here, and our tower is not open all the time, and so we don't have necessarily weather observers. And so if the tower is closed and we have a flight that is after hours and that weather system goes down, they end up diverting either to SeaTac, or they cancel the flight, or they go to SeaTac and then bus up, or they come the next day, that kind of thing. So we're really excited to see that there's going to be some extra money there that speeds up the process for repair, replacement, and staff to be able to respond in a more timely manner.
So how often is the tower open?
We're 6 a.m. to, what are we, 10 p.m., Dawson? I think it's 10 p.m., 7 days a week. And we do have some flights that come in around midnight, specifically a San Francisco flight, which is historically our most delayed flight, I guess. So if there's one that's impacted the most, it's usually our San Francisco flight.
San Francisco end of the day?
Yeah, correct.
Sort of absorbing all the backups from the rest of the day.
That's correct, yeah. It's the last domino to fall. So for us, it's happened a few times. I mean, it's not very frequent, but I've been here 2 years and it's probably happened 4 times.
So how does AWAS work? I talked to Saltchuk. The Saltchuk here in Seattle recently bought Ryanair, not that Ryanair, the other Ryanair.
Okay.
The family owned Ryanair in Alaska. They're the kind of last mile airline provider there, and AWAS was an important issue for them.
Yeah, so for us, the way, I guess administratively, the FAA, the tower has to contract with the National Weather Service. So if there's a problem, they're the ones that put in the ticket for resolution. Obviously, we push our support behind that as well to keep up with the commercial service. And then we have a actual weather station on the north end of our airfield that has runway visibility ranges, sensors that can tell what visibility is. There's wind meters, barometric pressure, there's rain sensors, that type of thing. So it's a full automated weather station, but if one of those things goes out of service or it's not reporting for some reason, pilots can't get that weather, then they use the tower staff as the backup. But obviously if they're not there, there's no way to get that weather. We're working with our staff right now to get our ops specialists certified weather observation certificates so that they can go out and perform that task if it's needed. But that's, if our staff is here. So.
And that task is what?
Yeah, so what they'll do is they would get a some type of computer device that is authorized as a real weather observation tool. They'll go to a point on the airfield where they can read the tool, visually look and make sure the tool and what they see match, and then they're able to report back like to Alaska Flight Services and say, hey, this is the weather, and then that pilot can make a decision to fly here or not.
That's interesting. That's literally what I thought it was, and when I explained it to me at Salt Chuck, I was thinking, what? It's like you just send someone out and it's like eyewitness weather. You look out the window and say, the weather is this.
Yeah.
I said, no, it's a little more complex than that, but not much more complex.
Yeah. It's not too complex. I mean, if it was more complex.
If you're in the middle of, like literally in the middle of the bush in Alaska, right? That's probably your best bet.
Yeah.
And you're serving a village of 300 people.
Right.
That's probably your best bet.
Yeah.
But the requirement is either the weather station works or somebody who's trained and qualified is able to tell you the weather. And without that, the aircraft just can't operate.
They need divert.
So it's a tricky one, but yeah. So we're supportive of that. We're glad that's in there. That's exciting for us.
And then on that for here, it's probably easier. But our runway lights on the entire time. 24/7?
Yes. Yeah. So we even though the tower's closed, the airport's still open. And pilots, if they want the lights brighter, they can click their mics, and they're able to control the lights.
Oh, is that right?
Test the intensity of the lights. Too,
okay.
So,
All right. Yeah, I wasn't aware we used it. But this week?
Yeah, you betcha.
Does Bellingham use it?
I would assume Bellingham has one. I know SeaTac has. I don't know if they're an ASOS versus an AWAS. But most airports with any type of commercial service likely have some type of automated.
And that's kind of your backup to the backup. A lot of times. Thanks. That's good to know.
Yeah, you betcha. We also, we would directly benefit from any of the grants for the unleaded fuel infrastructure that's out there. Or the solar infrastructure projects that are out there now. So we're really excited about that. One of the things that we thought might be of benefit, and so maybe this is handled at the state level versus the federal level, is that aircraft operators, I think that this might speed the process up for us to make the transition to the unleaded fuel, is aircraft operators have to get an STC for their aircraft. And so it's basically, if I have an airplane right now, it takes 100 low lead, that aircraft isn't certified to take 100 unleaded. And so I'd have to go out as an aircraft owner and spend $500, $1,000 for an STC, and I forget the acronym, but basically your certificate.
Something like that.
That's exactly it, yeah. So
basically, FAA would say your airplane is qualified.
Exactly.
Certified to use that.
Yeah, so we're thinking, that is a barrier right now when I talk to our GA tenants to say, oh, well, if the airport has 100 low lead and 100 unleaded, why would I spend $1,000 to get an STC if I could still use the other thing? So I think that if there's any...
No, if we make the full transition by 2030 to unleaded, their answer is because they won't fly your airplane at all.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that would, speed the process up as if there was some type of funding for those private owners to be able to, whether it's I guess a reimbursement of some kind or something, but maybe something creative out there will speed that up and kind of remove the barrier for some of the pilots that aren't as, I guess, fortunate financially as others. So.
On the AIP of the unleaded infrastructure, as part of the bill, to recognize that we want airports to move to unleaded, as well as to invest in infrastructure to otherwise support sustainable fuels. We both up the amount of money for AIP authorizations from well, whatever 4 billion minus 650, so from 3.35 billion to 4 billion. And that $650 million difference is slanted like 70-30 towards GA airports, generally GA airports. And then made AIP eligible to pay for this new infrastructure.
Okay, awesome. All right.
So those are two things that are.
That's good. Yeah. And that's a struggle because some airports have their own fuel tanks, and like us, we have fuel tanks, but they're owned and operated by a private entity. So that would be very, very helpful for airports like us. So excited about that too. That'd be a big, huge transition in aviation as far as clean air goes. So really good. Dawson, do you want to talk a little bit about the aviation workforce development grants for the study of high school aviation maintenance training? Go for it.
I'll mention this is the draft Senate bill, the aviation workforce development grants. There's a tremendous focus on making sure that we are prepared for the maintenance workers of the future, or aerospace workers. So there's both the grants for educational institutions, for aerospace mechanics, anything related to an aircraft operation, and as well as they're looking into a study for high school aviation maintenance training. So that would definitely benefit our tenants in the community. It doesn't specifically say anything about airport workers, but we really do support anything that helps the educational path to support Boeing, to support aircraft maintenance, which is a major part of our tenants. But know that that doesn't directly impact the airport because it doesn't specifically authorize any funding for airport education for airport workers.
No, it doesn't. And our bill doesn't either. And it's not just Boeing, there's 700 aerospace suppliers in the state that would benefit from it as well. Right. Including a lot of my district. About half of them will look at my district. So. Yeah, and that's probably where most of that money will go as well. Probably, I won't speak. I can't say for sure Boeing wouldn't see the money, but my guess is that, ATS got a nearly $500,000 grant recently from the current version of Section 625. This is the Aerospace Workforce Development Grant Program. But $500,000 to Boeing probably isn't that much. So you can't quote me on that. I'm sure it's a lot.
And our understanding is it could really impact the community colleges like Everett Community College and the technical institutes that do the training for the pipeline.
Yeah. So in our bill, the current program has pilots and maintenance, and then we're tripling the amount of money for authorization to $45 million, and we're adding manufacturing workforce as well in our bill. And there's a 20% set aside on each of the $15 million for the Willa Brown, is that right? Willa Brown Aviation Workforce Development. So she's the first Black American to be licensed as a pilot and then as a commercial pilot. So we're that money, that 20% set aside is to do outreach into communities that have been underserved historically, and try to basically take advantage of the changing demographic in the United States and not do it accidentally, but do it on purpose, to encourage folks who haven't been represented in this industry to think about it a little harder and be welcomed into it.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, catch them while they're early.
Yeah,
catch them while they're young, for sure. Okay, thank you, Dawson. Very supportive of the increase from 90% to 95% on the contribution for our federal grants, so we will not turn that down ever. So yeah, really excited about that. I think that's going to give a lot of latitude, a little bit more freedom for airports to be able to fund projects that are a little bit bigger than just right outside their reach. So that's exciting. So very supportive of that. Just a quick note of the 3 new grant assurances. We don't think any of them really have a substantial impact on us, so absolutely fine with that. One thing we did want to kind of talk a little bit about, or just make you aware, I'm sure you're already aware, is, obviously our terminal is exempted a lot of times from the federal grants because they're privately owned and operated. And so we didn't know if there was, any ways to, kind of work around that to make sure our airport.
I don't think they're exempt, they're not allowed.
Well, yeah, exactly, yes, they're not allowed, so.
So don't make it sound like I just need to get rid of them.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, they're not eligible, so there we go. But we want to, we know that we have expansion coming up here in the future, and so, there's a lot of money that a lot of airports get that we're not able to receive because that is a private entity, and so we understand that, we know why that is, but if there's any way in the future for maybe airport to be able to receive that fund to maybe help the private entity out in that regard, or maybe direct to the private entity with some rules attached to it, not really sure, but we know that just because of the nature of how our business is set up here, it's sometimes we're not eligible for what other airports are, and so that kind of I won't say sets us back, but just kind of an extra barrier for us to be able to move forward on some things.
So when we sent over this information that you sent on Friday to T&I staff, they said that we could, Noel and I could connect you with T&I committee staff.
Okay.
Look into that. No, not saying anything.
Right, no promises. I got you.
We'll connect you. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, just be able to talk through it at least. Be helpful. So thanks. And then also we see too with the kind of the PFAS cleanup. It's a lot of those funds are dedicated to the vehicles and the replacements of the fluids and so on. But what we didn't really see was the land environmental piece, the actual cleanup of the earth or the dirt. And so I'm sure the EPA probably has some work to do on that as we figure out what that looks like going forward. But maybe not this time around, but sometime
keep that in mind.
Future.
I can probably the answer to that is because that's not our jurisdiction.
Right,
right. It's not
yeah.
the FAA's, not the FAA bill that to do earth cleanup. That's like I said, an EPA, or a State Department of Ecology issue. But not that it's not important. I'm just saying in terms of dealing with the bill, the language of the bill.
Exactly. Okay. All right. And then there was another thing back to the WSU and the grants. The way airports receive money and the way we have to spend money, and we have WSU put in this R&D center here at the airport. The way we have to manage it is we have to use another county department to do it because the airport can't use revenue to go into county economic development type things because of grant assurances. And so we're just wanted to throw it out there that maybe as we move forward, if there's an opportunity for airports to have a little bit more freedom in that regard, so that we can assist those institutions.
Is that a FAA issue or is that a county?
It is.
Is it because you're an enterprise fund within the county and that's why?
It's an FAA.
You couldn't do this if you're the solid waste department either.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's specifically I would say it's a grant assurance issue. If we took grant money, it's considered revenue from the FAA, and then we couldn't turn around and then put it into a countywide like economic development type thing, because it benefits the aviation industry, but it doesn't benefit the airport per se. And so we're kind of locked in there on what we can do with those funds. And so we figured out some workarounds, and those are good. But I think that just as we kind of look towards different sustainable fuels as we move forward, whatever those are. If airports would, be able to have a little bit more freedom and being able to help assist those types of efforts as they happen at airports. And so that's just something that we talked about, and I did, is maybe something in the future that airports are able to use those revenues to assist in that, because I think that would help speed up the process of what SAF might look like in the future. So. All right. Make sure I have it all here. Yeah, I think those are kind of the summary of bullets for us that we wanted to chat about. There's one more item I think we could chat about behind closed doors, and we wanted to discuss with you and kind of just make you aware of it, but probably do that in a more private setting. So if I guess we'll call it good. Do you have anything, I guess, else while these gents are here?
Just to watch the timeline.
Yeah.
If you do want, we are moving forward on the manager amendment, so if there's something hanging out there that seems relatively easy, nothing's relatively easy, but if it's relatively easy, then let me know sooner rather than later. We are trying to keep it bipartisan. We passed the bill out of committee 63-0. There's probably two problematic provisions having to do nothing to do with you all, with airports, having to do with pilots, that are really ginning people stakeholders up that we're trying to manage, but largely we're trying to keep this bipartisan. We have what we call a Big Four agreement in committee, and we're going to do it on the floor as well. So the Big Four would be the chair, the ranking, and the chair of the subcommittee, and the ranking of the subcommittee. We either all four support an amendment that's brought to the floor, or we all four oppose it, unless we make an exception. So again, we would speak out against an amendment if we thought it would mess up the bill or what have you, and vote against it, or we would all speak for it. And so just and we do that in order to kind of keep peace in the family. And long term, over the life of the committee, it actually ends up being a really, really good thing. It's really frustrating for the people who are on the back end of the no votes. But I've also told members on my side of the aisle, I was like, look, don't bring any amendments to the floor, right? You were on the committee, you got your stuff in the bill. And for the stuff you didn't get in the bill, remember all the stuff you did get in the bill, because it's all really good stuff that you got in the bill. So don't, no second bites of the apple on the floor of the House, because you won't win. You've already won a lot. Take it. You got on the committee to do this. You did it. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's exciting.
But it can be frustrating. So I just a heads up. I just watch this space. So there might be things that amendments that come up, and you'll say, "Oh, this is great." Let Rick know. And I'm going to say, yeah, that's one we all agreed we're going to oppose. And now you'll know why. And it may be a great policy, and it may not be a great policy. But there may be a lot of reasons why things get in and things don't get in. So just a heads up.
Oh, that's good. That keeps it moving. So I think that's...
Well, it keeps it moving. Like it's already a substantial policy bill. And so we have nothing to be ashamed of overall in this bill already. There's just some problematic provisions again on pilot age and retirement and on training, but it's like let's get through the process. Let's move. The process is a way of helping us sort things out.
Is that the move to age to 67? Is that one of them?
That's one. Yeah, that's one of them.
Okay.
It's kind of an interesting issue, and then maybe I can follow up with you separately on that. I'm against raising that age, but the internationally recognized age is 65, not 67. So you can't fly, a pilot cannot fly internationally if they're older than 65. And I don't mean they're going to be 66, I mean 65 in a minute. Right. And that's set by an international organization, KO. And that was set in 2005. It used to be 60.
60, yeah, rule of 60, I remember that.
Yeah, but they went through a whole process to determine people are living longer, they're healthier, they're in better shape, so let's move to age 65. After which, most countries, including the United States, moved to 65. Well, this is like putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
If there's an airplane analogy there, I'm sure we can find one too. Putting the airplane before the horse. Whereas we're going to do 67 for us, but like the rest of the world will be 65. So it's going to mess up a lot of human resource policy in the airlines and among pilots. It's going to be, in my view, a mess. And there's a good practical way of looking at it and coming to that conclusion. Passing a law that's unique to the United States probably is not it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but I can get you more detail on this.
Okay.
It's probably worth it.
I'll